Good morning, I'm Dilek Tuna. You're watching A News. Here are your top stories. King Charles strips brother Andrew of titles and his mansion. Zelensky says Russia targets Ukrainian energy sites in new wave of strikes. And Afghanistan and Pakistan agreed on the continuation of a ceasefire after talks in Istanbul. Britain's King Charles has stripped his brother Andrew of all remaining royal titles, including the designation of Prince. The decision follows years of controversy over Andrew's ties with Jeffrey Epstein.
A family scandal turns into royal exile.
So what do you think about this?
King Charles has stripped his brother Andrew of every royal honour. Andrew will no longer use the title His Royal Highness or the designation of Prince in any official capacity. He will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and will also leave his royal residence at the Royal Lodge. The decision, announced by Buckingham Palace, follows renewed pressure over Andrew's long-standing association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The move has drawn a mixed response across Britain, but many Londoners largely welcomed the decision of Britain's King Charles.
He's representing the country and he's meant to be the face of England. Is this what we represent? Is this what the people represent? No, it's a disgrace. So I'm happy he's got a strip on his titles, his royal titles as well. He should be kicked out of the country because these guys live off us. We're the working class, we're the people in charge, basically.
I think it's fair. I also think that they should release the list. I also think that anyone who does quote-unquote unbecoming things deserves that kind of treatment, yeah.
It is not the first scandal of Andrew. His late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, stripped him of his patronages and military associations in 2022, making him a royal persona non grata. The decision occurred after the settlement of sex abuse lawsuit filed against him by Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who died by suicide in Australia earlier this year. Since then, the 65-year-old has only made public appearances at family events.
Polish fighter jets have intercepted a Russian reconnaissance plane over the Baltic Sea on Thursday in the second such incident this week. Poland's Defence Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz confirmed that MiG-29 aircraft were scrambled after detecting the Russian Tu-20 plane flying in international airspace. The Polish Army operational commander later described the incident on a social media platform and published multiple photos of the intercepted plane. The incident follows a similar interception earlier this week. A Russian bomb strike on a Ukrainian thermal power plant killed at least 3 people and injured several others in the eastern city of Sloviansk on Thursday. It remains unclear whether the 830-megawatt facility is currently operational. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attack and urged the international community to respond.
The strike was complex, a combined, deliberately calculated one, designed to make it difficult to counter. There were missiles, including ballistic ones, and air-launched ballistic types. In total, 52 missiles and more than 600 strike drones were launched, around 400 of them Shahids. Most of the drones were neutralized, and 2/3 of the missiles were also shot down. This is outright terror. Normal countries don't wage war like this, and the world must respond appropriately to such Russian warfare.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is set to meet Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi on the sidelines of the APEC summit in South Korea. The meeting comes after Takaichi's talks with US President Donald Trump on Tuesday, during which Trump welcomed her pledge to speed up Japan's military build-up and signed a series of agreements on trade and rare earths. Xi will also meet Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to discuss their commercial ties. Carney says he hopes to reset expectations in Canada's relationship with China. The United Nations has raised concerns over US President Donald Trump's order to resume nuclear weapons testing. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said nuclear testing should never be permitted under any circumstances. US Vice President J.D. Vance defended the decision, calling it an important step toward ensuring national security.
We have a big arsenal, obviously. The Russians have a large nuclear arsenal. The Chinese have a large nuclear arsenal. Sometimes you've got to test it to make sure that it's functioning and working properly. We've been working very closely, even with nations that we don't have the best relations with, to try to limit nuclear proliferation. The president's going to keep on working on that, but it's an important part of American national security to make sure that this nuclear arsenal we have actually functions properly, and that's part of a testing regime. To be clear, we know that it does work properly, but you got to keep on top of it over time, and the president just wants to make sure that we do that.
Hurricane Melissa's impact is being felt across the Caribbean, with dozens dead and widespread destruction reported in Jamaica, Cuba and Haiti. Recovery efforts are underway as the storm weakens and moves toward Bermuda.
Hurricane Melissa left a trail of destruction across the northern Caribbean this week, devastating parts of Jamaica, Cuba and Haiti, before weakening over open waters on its way to Bermuda. In Jamaica, hospitals were damaged, power grids collapsed, and thousands were stranded after the Category 5 storm hit the island's southwest. Residents faced blocked roads, stranded communities and long lines for scarce fuel as US rescue teams arrived to assist in recovery efforts, with damages estimated at $22 billion. The confirmed death toll from hurricane climbed to 49 on Thursday after wreaking destruction across much of the northern Caribbean. More than 70% of the island remained without power on Thursday morning. In eastern Cuba, residents in Santiago de Cuba cleared debris and patched roofs after heavy rain and strong winds. Authorities reported significant infrastructure and crop damage, but no fatalities after evacuating more than 700,000 people from vulnerable areas.
We've all finished cleaning up, and now we're going to start organizing the merchandise. After that, we'll open the doors to the public. For electricity, we're using the generator. With that, we've got all the fridges running, and we're cooling everything down so we can resume service.
Meanwhile, in Haiti, at least 25 people were killed and 12 reported missing, most in the coastal town of Petit Goâve, where flooding swept through homes after a river overflowed.
Hurricane Melissa, look what it has done to us. We are victims. We don't know what the situation is like in other areas. We are victims at the La Digue Bridge. We couldn't save anything we owned, not even our slippers and shoes. Everything is gone. I survived because I live on a higher hill.
As Melissa weakened to Category 1 late Thursday, forecasters said it would pass northwest of Bermuda. Across the Caribbean, from Kingston to Santiago de Cuba and Petit Goâve, recovery was just beginning amid destroyed homes and widespread damage.
Brazil has begun preparations for the COP30 climate summit scheduled for next month. Security forces carried out large-scale exercises in Belém, including hostage rescue simulations and a mock bombing scenario at a shopping centre. The drills were designed to train military police and emergency responders for potential crises during major international events. More than 7,000 personnel from the Army, Navy and Air Force took part. The UN Security Council condemned an assault by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces on Al-Fasher in Sudan's North Darfur, expressing grave concern at the heightened risk of large-scale atrocities, including ethnically motivated atrocities. RSF's leader has declared an investigation into what he called violations committed by his soldiers during the capture of Al-Fasher. The announcement came amid reports that more than 460 civilians were shot dead at the last partially functioning hospital. The city had been the army's last stronghold in the Darfur region and was captured by the RSF on Sunday after an 18-month siege marked by starvation and heavy bombardment. Canada's Auditor General has issued a scathing report on Indigenous Services Canada, saying years of funding increases have failed to deliver real progress. From healthcare to child welfare and environmental response, Indigenous communities across the country continue to face systemic barriers.
Indigenous communities across Canada are once again at the centre of a national debate over equality and government accountability. The country's Auditor General says years of promises and billions of dollars in new funding have failed to deliver meaningful progress. Despite a near doubling of spending from $13 billion in 2019 to $24 billion in 2024 Indigenous services, Canada has not implemented more than half of the recommendations it was given. Essential programs remain inconsistent. Hundreds of First Nations still lack access to clean drinking water and reliable emergency response, a gap that continues to widen as climate disasters intensify. According to the National Observer, Ottawa's emergency readiness remains fragmented and reactive, leaving many remote communities vulnerable. Beyond funding, Indigenous populations are now facing deep social transitions. The Policy Options Institute reports that Indigenous fertility rates have fallen below replacement level for the first time, signalling the end of Canada's fastest growing demographic. Researchers warn the decline will reshape rural economies, labour supply, and long-term community survival in northern and remote areas. In healthcare, more than 500 Indigenous patients in Saskatchewan have formally complained of discrimination or denial of access to essential medical services. At the same time, a separate CBC News investigation highlights the lasting trauma of forced sterilisation. A new report by the University of Ottawa and the Survivors' Circle for Reproductive Justice shows how survivors face renewed pain as they attempt pregnancy restoration procedures, both physically and psychologically. In British Columbia, the legacy of colonisation remains vivid. 3 Indigenous land defenders who tried to block construction of the Coastal GasLink pipeline were spared jail time. The judge cited serious abuses by police and acknowledged Canada's colonial past when handing down conditional sentences, a rare recognition of Indigenous resistance in the courts. Ontario's First Nations are still waiting for billions in delayed child welfare funding money meant to help Indigenous communities manage their own programs and keep children closer to their culture and families. Leaders warn the delay, now under review by the Human Rights Tribunal, is another example of federal promises lost in bureaucracy.
Pakistan and Afghanistan have agreed to continue their ceasefire following talks in Istanbul, mediated by Turkey and Qatar. That's according to the Foreign Ministry of Turkey. The joint statement said all parties will establish a monitoring and verification mechanism to maintain peace and impose penalties for violations. Officials also confirmed that discussions on the border situation will continue, with a new meeting scheduled in Istanbul on the 6th of November. Germany and Turkey are opening a new chapter in their relations. During his first official visit to Ankara, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz met President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, pledging to revive high-level EU talks and boost defence cooperation.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz wrapped up his first official visit to Ankara on Thursday after meeting President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, signalling a renewed push for closer cooperation between Germany, Turkey and the European Union. Both leaders agreed to restart high-level dialogues, including foreign ministers' talks and the long-paused JETCO economic meetings. On defence, Erdogan welcomed Germany's support for joint projects, including Turkey's planned purchase of 20 Eurofighter jets, calling it a step forward for both trade and security. Merz said the aircraft would strengthen NATO's collective defence.
We discussed with Mr. Chancellor the issue of defence cooperation, which will elevate both our trade and joint investments. In light of the changing security conditions in Europe, we need to leave behind past difficulties in the procurement of defence industry products. and focus on joint projects. We welcome the positive steps Germany has recently taken in this area, such as the procurement process of Eurofighter aircraft.
While Merz spoke of keeping Europe's door open, questions persist over how far Germany and the EU are truly willing to go on Turkey's membership path.
Personally, and the federal government sees Turkey as a close ally of the European Union. We want to continue paving the way to Europe. I told the President that I would also like to advocate for a corresponding strategic dialogue at the European level. We discussed the Copenhagen criteria, which are a prerequisite for such a path. These are issues that we want to continue discussing together. We have decided that the strategic dialogue between the foreign ministers will be resumed, that the JETCO economic meeting, which has been suspended for several years, will take place again in the near future, and that there will soon be a fifth meeting of the defence industry.
Still, analysts warn that behind the warm words, political hurdles remain.
You know what? The accession to European Union is still a primary motivation for Turkish foreign policy. We should clarify that. But on the other hand, I would say that Germany has a ambiguous position regarding this issue. On the one hand, they express that they are okay with the Turkish accession to the European Union, but on the other hand, they blocked Turkish accessions to Turkey's process to the European Union. I think at this point they have kind of a two-faced approach to the Turkish accession to the European Union, I would say.
The leaders also discussed regional issues from Gaza and Ukraine to migration and trade tensions. Merz praised Turkey's mediation efforts in Gaza and reaffirmed Germany's support for Israel's right to self-defense. Merz stressed Germany's intent to deepen ties with Turkey and revive long-stalled dialogue channels with Brussels.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that his ministry is pursuing a policy of provincial diplomacy to promote Iran's relations with the neighbouring countries. Atura Shiraliliu has more from Tehran.
Iran's top diplomat Abbas Araghchi stressed the role of trade and cultural exchanges between the border provinces and the neighbouring countries, saying the foreign ministry is supporting what he termed the provincial diplomacy to further bilateral ties with neighbors. Speaking at a conference in Tabriz University on Wednesday, he said that the northern and northwestern Iranian provinces of East Azerbaijan and West Azerbaijan, Gilan and Ardabil can play again the historical role of serving as gateways to enhance relations with regional countries, including Armenia, Azerbaijan, Russia and Turkey. Araghchi added that the foreign ministry has the implementation of the policy of provincial diplomacy on its agenda, so that Iran's diplomatic missions can establish effective ties with the provincial capitals and help develop trade, people-to-people exchanges, and cultural cooperation. Last week, the Iranian foreign minister opened the provincial diplomacy conference in the northeastern city of Mashhad, in which he stated that economic ties with the neighboring countries are the breathing space in the wake of sanctions. Saying that majority of bilateral issues can be reviewed and resolved at border areas, he added that Iran's priority in foreign relations is its immediate neighbors and next, the nearby countries in the region. According to Araghchi, smugglers and terrorists do not cross the borders through which goods are exchanged and passengers traveled. As the saying goes, he stated, if local officials in border provinces reach agreements with their neighboring provinces, the borders will function as borders of peace. Turaj Shiralilu, Tehran, A-News.
Azerbaijan and the Vatican are writing a new story of dialogue and heritage. The historic, cultural and religious ties were highlighted during the visit of First Vice President of Azerbaijan, Mehriban Aliyeva, to the Holy See.
In the heart of the Vatican, where frescoes whisper prayers across centuries and manuscripts lie like fragile time capsules, Azerbaijan's presence is palpable. Its ties to the Holy See stretch back centuries. the Vatican's secret archives hold 85 rare Azerbaijani documents dating from the 10th to the 20th century, including letters from the Elkhani, Agkoyunlu, Karakoyunlu, and Sefavi, states to the popes of Rome. Nearby, in the Apostolic Library, 65 manuscripts shine. Among these treasures is a rare Vatican copy of the epic Kitabi Dede Gorgud from the early 16th century. These manuscripts are bridges across time, connecting Azerbaijan to the heart of Europe. It is precisely this centuries-long dialogue between Baku and Rome, a Muslim-majority nation meeting the heart of Catholicism, that shaped First Vice President Mehriban Aliyeva's visit. Each corridor, fresco, and restored manuscript became a living testament to cultural dialogue. The visit began with the inauguration of the restoration project of the catacombs of Comodila. Welcomed by Monsignor Pasquale Iacobone, Cardinal Gianfranco Ravasi, and Amadeo Chiacari, she inspected the meticulous work preserving ancient Christian frescoes and structural elements using nanotechnology and laser treatments. Monsignor Iacobone praised Azerbaijan's role in previous restorations of the St. Marcelino and Pietro, as well as the St. Sebastian catacombs, highlighting long-term cooperation with the Pontifical Commission for Sacred Archaeology. Reflecting on Azerbaijan's centuries of multicultural coexistence, the first vice president emphasized that the partnership with the Vatican sets an example of tolerance and dialogue in today's complex world. The Basilica of St. Paul, outside the walls, Europe's second largest church and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was the next stop. Its calm atmosphere and sacred artistry, preserved for future generations, stood as a testament to centuries of devotion. Guided by Cardinal James Harvey, the Azerbaijani delegation reviewed ongoing restorations supported by the Heydar Aliyev Foundation, noting the care devoted to marble facades, mosaics, and architectural details. From molecular genetics labs humming with precision to advanced clinical diagnostic centers, every corner of Europe's largest pediatric hospital, Bambino Gesù, revealed new possibilities for the bilateral scientific cooperation. The recently signed Memorandum of Understanding between the Heydar Aliyev Foundation, Azerbaijan's Ministry of Health, and the hospital promises not just collaboration, but the creation of world-class laboratories and a generation of specialists ready to bring international medical standards home. Pope Leo XIV underscored the role of these initiatives in promoting inter-religious and inter-civilizational dialogue. Their conversation embraced the Catholic community in Azerbaijan and plans for a second church in Baku, a gesture anchoring faith and friendship in the capital. Moments later, Cardinal Pietro Parolin joined the dialogue. Talks stretched beyond diplomacy into values, religious tolerance, multiculturalism, and peace-building in the South Caucasus. Outside, in the serene Vatican gardens, Mehriban Aliyeva and Sister Raffaella Petrini planted a pomegranate tree, its roots drinking from sacred soil and branches stretching toward the sky. This single act embodied life, fertility, and abundance, a living symbol of Azerbaijan's enduring values and the friendship blossoming between the two nations. The corridors of St. Peter's Basilica awaited next. Beneath towering arches and centuries-old frescoes, the first vice president observed restoration work supported by the Heydar Aliyev Foundation. The bas-relief of Pope Leo I, meeting Emperor Attila, and the Tullius Zetus Mausoleum, each stone now infused with renewed life. Cardinal Mauro Gambetti praised Azerbaijan's tangible commitment to preserving Christianity's iconic heritage, turning history into a shared canvas of respect and care. At the Vatican Apostolic Library and Archives, the story shifted from stone to parchment, Manuscripts restored and digitized under agreements with the Haydar Aliyev Foundation and the Azerbaijan National Academy of Sciences whispered centuries of connection. Mehriban Aliyeva presented a collection of Azerbaijani publications, threading Baku's cultural heritage into the heart of Europe. Later, steps from the Apostolic Palace, the new administrative office of Azerbaijan's embassy to the Holy See, opened its doors. A hub designed not just for diplomacy, but for dialogue with the world. Nearby, a triptych of Azerbaijani carpets celebrating Judaism, Christianity, and Islam spoke silently of universal values, weaving peace, compassion, and justice into the Vatican's corridors. Frescoes resurrected, manuscripts breathing life again, a pomegranate tree planted in sacred soil. These gestures transcended diplomacy. They restored, connected, and reminded the world that beauty and belief, though centuries old and seemingly fragile, can coexist. Luminous, unbroken, and enduring. This was not merely an official visit, but a dialogue between civilizations, one written in restoration and heritage rather than politics. A Muslim-majority country preserving Christian sacred art, rebuilding history's fragile veins in the heart of the Vatican. This mission transcends borders. It restores, reconnects, and reminds the world that beauty and belief can coexist.
In climate news, $250 million from the Green Climate Fund is set to be invested in help communities in Central Asia, South Caucasus and Pakistan adapt to the effects of melting glaciers. The initiative could change the lives of millions. Fariza Kalimurzina has more.
The Green Climate Fund has approved $250 million in financing for the Asian Development Bank's initiative From Glaciers to Farms, covering Central Asia, the South Caucasus and Pakistan. The program will strengthen water security and support agriculture across the region. It will cover 9 countries and focus on major river basins such as the Naran, Pianch, Kura and Suot. Overall, around 13 million people are expected to see tangible improvements in their access to water and agricultural support. The issue of glacier melt was among the key topics at the UN climate conference COP29. According to scientists in Tajikistan alone, out of 14,000 glaciers, more than 1,000 have already disappeared completely, and the melting is accelerating. While the glacier program is helping communities secure water and support agriculture, Kazakhstan is taking action in a different way. Their drones are set to plant special seeds that bury themselves in the soil, helping to bring life back to the dried bed of the Aral Sea. This technology is expected to strengthen the soil, reduce dust and salt in the air, and gradually turn a devastated landscape back into a living ecosystem. The Aral Sea has become a symbol of one of the world's largest environmental disasters. Its surface area has shrunk by 90%, leaving millions of hectares of salt flats that generate toxic dust storms. Environmental experts estimate that tens of billions of tons of salt are carried by winds across thousands of kilometers, reaching as far as the Arctic and the Himalayas. And now, thanks to new technologies and international cooperation, the region has a chance to bring life back to a place that once seemed lost forever. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
That's your news update for this morning. From all of us in the studio, thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.